Welcome to NHL Wraparound's Trade Deadline Recap Show for March 6, 2026. Vic, Morren, Neil Smith, and it was a day where we saw a lot of trades made, a lot of fringe players moving around, a couple of big names out there. But overall, I thought the day was pretty underwhelming.
Well, a lot of bodies moved, a lot of bodies changing uniforms. And as you said, a couple of big names, one very late in the day, one very early in the day. And a lot of names, and not a ton of surprises, but let's get on with it and we'll let you know who it is.
All right. And amongst other things, we had brothers that were traded. We had brothers that were united. And as Neil had said early in the day, there were brothers in arms that won a Stanley Cup that are now separated in a trade between Washington and Anaheim. So we're going to get to all that. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start in the Central Division. And the big name that came over late was Nazem Kadri, returning back to the Colorado Avalanche, where he won a Stanley Cup in 2022. We are still waiting the return on that deal. So if we have it by the end of this record, of course, we will share it. Otherwise, we'll do it on short shifts on Monday. But Neil, I want to take the totality of the three heavyweights in the Central Division and where you feel either the same or differently in terms of their prospects going forward. So the Avalanche, who are on top of the division, they add Kadri. They've already added Brett Kulak. They also picked up Nick Blankenburg from the Nashville Predators and Nick Waugh from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Dallas got bigger and more agitating, adding Tyler Myers earlier in the week and then Michael Bunting from Nashville. And the Minnesota Wild pick up Michael McCarron. That was earlier in the week. Nick Foligno, captain of the Chicago Blackhawks, who joins his brother Marcus. Bobby Brink comes over from Philadelphia. And Jeff Petrie from the Florida Panthers. So this is going to be like the Texas-style cage death match. And unfortunately, one of them, at least, goes out in the first round.
Well, especially when you know that it's going to be Dallas and Minnesota in the first round, it doesn't look like there's much chance of that changing, and they're going to have to face each other, and one of those two loaded up, really good teams is going to have to go down. That's just the way that it goes. People have really loaded up, and those three clubs, those three GMs have made a lot of moves, and like you said, I mean, Colorado should be okay because they're going to play the second wildcard team, and they'll probably move on from there. Mm-hmm. But for Dallas and Minnesota, it's just one of those things again this year where sadly one of them is going to be gone after the first round.
You look at the way Dallas and Minnesota have beefed up their clubs also. And if you're the Avalanche, you're sitting there and all you want to do is hold on to first place and have these two teams go at it in what I think we'd have to expect would be a long, drawn-out, very physical series that both teams are going to get their pound of flesh, and the one that's standing will get the Avalanche in round two.
Yeah, that's your prize for winning that first round is you get the Colorado Avalanche, who probably, I mean, judging on their season, won't be such a long series, won't be as tired, but you never know. The interesting thing about Nick Foligno, the captain of the Chicago Blackhawks, going to the Minnesota Wild, where he joins his brother Marcus, they have never played together.
Yeah.
They both played for the Sudbury Wolves, but Nick left the Sudbury Wolves before Marcus's rookie year, and they certainly never played together in the NHL. So this is a new thing for them, and I know based on what the media reports are, they're both pretty excited about being together.
Let's talk a little bit more in the Central Division, and let's hit on the Utah Mammoth first, because we had Bill Armstrong on earlier this season. This is a team that is the first wild card right now. If they can manage to hold on to that, they will avoid Colorado in the first round, and they would get the first place team in the Pacific to open the playoffs. But they strengthened their defense a little bit by adding Mackenzie Weegar from the Calgary Flames in exchange for Oli Mata, a defenseman, a prospect, and 3 second-round picks. And when you consider that Uyghur is in his 30s already, that's 5 pieces that the Mammoth gave up to get Uyghur, who's had an underwhelming season in Calgary thus far.
Yeah, but I guess they felt that they needed some more offense from their defense. And when you look at the Utah Mammoth, and Ian Cole is on their defense, who's, he's really long in the tooth, been around a long time. Marino's been around a long time. Maybe they just didn't feel they had the depth. Mackenzie Weegar certainly has proven in past years, not this year, that he can add offensively. You look at Calgary now, and you take Rasmus Anderson out of their lineup, and you take Mackenzie Weegar out of their lineup. They don't have anybody at the back line to put some offense into the game.
Going to be putting their stock in their future and Zach Parekh on their back line. And we're going to talk more about Calgary in a little bit when we get to the Pacific Division, because I want to talk about the returns on those deals for those 2 defensemen. But rounding out the Central Division, we're just going to hit the drops here, because Nashville sends away, as we said earlier, Michael McCarron, Michael Bunting, Nick Blankenberg, Cole Smith, all gone from Nashville. No genuine return for them in terms of warm bodies this year. The Winnipeg Jets send Luke Shen and Logan Stanley to the Buffalo Sabres, as well as forward Tanner Pearson. Chicago Blackhawks move 3 players to the Edmonton Oilers: Jason Dickinson, Colton Dock, and Connor Murphy, in addition to the aforementioned Nick Foligno. They do get Andrew Mangiapane back from the Oilers. And the St. Louis Blues send Braden Shen, their captain, to the New York Islanders, and Justin Falk to the Detroit Red Wings. They do get back Jonathan Drouin in that deal with the New York Islanders. So with that, let's move over to the Pacific Division. And the blockbuster that we woke up to this morning, Neil, was John Carlson coming over from the Washington Capitals. This deal was met with a lot of surprise. He goes to Anaheim for a conditional 2026 first-round pick and a 2027 third-round pick. If Anaheim somehow misses the playoffs, then the Ducks have the option to keep their first-rounder or to transfer it to next year. But this is also the emotional piece of trades, because Carlson had played all 17 of his NHL seasons in Washington with Alex Ovechkin. He also played the entire 13-year career that Tom Wilson has spent with the Caps. And this was hard for both of those players. Ovi is a UFA at the end of the year, and when they asked him about his future, he didn't know, because this is one of his brothers from that cup-winning team in 2018.
This is the part of the hockey that you don't see. I mean, Wilson today was pretty articulate about the day sucked with losing or with trading Carlson. It's a guy I predicted they would trade because of the fact that he could help somebody that's an upper echelon team. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's still got something left. He's slowed down. He's not as good defensively as he used to be. But I guess the thing that would be most bothersome to OV and to Wilson and that crew in Washington is the white flag is being waved. And they're saying basically, we don't think we can make it, so we're going to get what we can for John Carlson. His contract expires at the end of the year. We could always re-sign him. We could negotiate like everybody else starting July 1st. So it's a tough day for the teammates when management steps in and trades one of the brotherhood.
I think when you look at the Ducks, they had the 3 grizzled veterans on the right side in Carlson, and Trouba, and Radko Gudas. And then the left side, you've got the younger guys in Jackson Lacombe, Olin Zellweger, and Mintyukov. So this is a pretty well-rounded out team right now. And I think Pat Verbeek has just done a terrific job this season. He also did send Ryan Strome to Calgary in a separate deal. But Strom wasn't playing that much, and this is a team that, as I had said a day or so ago, I think they can win a round, maybe even two, if they get the right draw in the Pacific.
Absolutely agree with you. And you don't leave out Joel Kenville, too, who's used to winning in the playoffs and is a good tactician in the playoffs, and now has a veteran team mixed in with some terrific young players. They could upset somebody in the first round for sure. There's no doubt about that. It looks like at this point, anyways, their date is going to be with Edmonton. But you know what? Edmonton's not a sure thing this year at all, the way they play so inconsistently.
Well, let's talk about Edmonton right now, because they were looking to move Andrew Mangiapane and were trying to get third line center in return. They plucked Chicago earlier in the week. They got defenseman Connor Murphy, and then they have subsequently added Jason Dickinson, who was an alternate captain in Chicago, and Colton Dock. But when you look at this team and you see how they're structured going forward, one of the biggest problems with them has been support scoring. And they had Evander Kane a year ago, and they had a Corey Perry a year ago. And you can't always be dependent on 97, 29, 2, and 18 to carry your entire offense. And I don't believe that this has been adequately addressed. And as we have said, their goaltending is not better than it was a year ago or 2 years ago.
No, it's not. And some of the players that as you said, in that bottom six just didn't contribute offensively the way they perhaps would have thought. Adam Henrique was getting near the end of his career. Can't be expected to give that much. They've got Curtis Lazar, Kapanen. Trent Frederick is not a great offensive player. So, you're depending too much on those, top 4 to 5 forwards to do all the offensive work. And of course, you've got Bouchard, who scores a lot, and Nurse can give you some offensive help from the back line. Connor Murphy's going to help them defensively for sure. Dickinson will be probably better than what they've got in their bottom six, and Colton Dock, but they still are not great in those areas.
No, they're not. They're not. And right now, they are third in the Pacific Division, and they're going to probably play either Vegas or Anaheim in the first round. But you know what? We're 5 weeks away from that. Let's talk about the Golden Knights for a second, because traditionally they are very active. They did make the big move to acquire Rasmus Anderson from the Calgary Flames. And at this deadline, they added Nick Dowd from Washington, and they picked up Cole Smith from the Nashville Predators. But I think here's another team that has some question marks in goal. And when you consider that Sergei Bobrovsky could have been available, maybe Jordan Binnington could have been available, I know that this is a club with great veteran presence, and Mitch Marner will be having his first playoff in Vegas. But I don't get the feeling that this club scares people the way I thought they were going to at the start of the season.
Well, they've had so many injuries, and especially Mark Stone, who's such a vital part of this whole thing, going out again to an injury a couple of nights ago. This team is just very inconsistent, and you don't really know what you're going to get from night to night. You can't bank on Vegas winning games every time you turn on your TV. So I think that's why they're not looked at the same way as they were when they were much more consistent in past years.
Let's talk about the 5 other clubs in the Pacific. San Jose traded defenseman Timothy Liljegren to the Washington Capitals. That was a late day move. Seattle Kraken picked up forward Bobby McMahon from the Toronto Maple Leafs. The LA Kings, in addition to adding Artemi Panarin right before the Olympic break, picked up Scott Lawton from the Maple Leafs today. And they also lose Corey Perry, who goes to the Tampa Bay Lightning. So we already know that the Lightning are going to make the final, because Perry has been in the final 5 out of the last 6 years. They traded Warren Fogle to the Ottawa Senators. And, of course, Liam Greentree was part of that Panarin deal earlier in February. So We were talking about the Calgary Flames just a second ago, and as part of that Nazem Kadri deal, they pick up 2 more draft picks from the Avalanche. So when you look at a club that is clearly trying to build for the future, between the Uyghur deal, the Anderson deal, the Kadri deal, they've picked up 7 draft picks. And as you know from your days back as a scout and head of player personnel and being a general manager, you can't acquire enough pieces. That's certainly a lot of pieces.
It's a lot of pieces for 3 years from now, because that's how long it's going to take, 3-4 years for those picks that they've picked up to become even possible Flames. What they do in the meantime is anybody's guess, because, now that they don't have Uyghur, they don't have Rasmus Anderson, they don't have Kadri, they're going to have to struggle for a while. Certainly the rest of this season is a write-off, and we'll have to see what they do over the summer. Their goaltending is good. We know that, so they don't have to worry about that, but they got to fill in a lot of places.
They have a new building opening in 2027, and I think they're trying to time this rebuild so that they get into the new building and there's somewhat of an upswing with this franchise.
And, they've got young guys like Coronado that are up and coming, pretty good players. Yeah. They still got their captain, Michael Backlund. There's a plan there, and they're trying to, with draft picks, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, and you hope that a lot of it sticks. But the more picks you have, the better chance you have of stuff sticking to the wall.
Craig Conroy should get his throwing arm warmed up, and let's see what happens with that team. Finally, the Vancouver Canucks, and they traded Connor Garland to the Columbus Blue Jackets for a couple of draft picks. They had moved Tyler Myers earlier in the week. When you look at the other deals that they have made, Kiefer Sherwood, gone. JT Miller, gone. And with Garland, Patrick Allvin signed him to a 6-year deal on July 1st. And now he's gone for a pair of draft picks. So this is a full-blown fire sale in Vancouver. And you think this year's bad. I don't think you see nothing yet.
No, I mean, I don't even know what to say about the Canucks. They are decimated. They still have Elias Pettersson on their team, who has had a horrible year. They still have Jake DeBrusk, who is a pretty good winger. They still have Brock Besser, which is another pretty good winger. But you can't win with 2 or 3 guys. Let's see what they do in the offseason. But this is a hard one to look into a crystal ball for.
They also move David Kampf at the end of the deadline. Kampf going to the Washington Capitals. It actually played pretty well for them. So now let's head over to the Atlantic Division. And the Buffalo Sabres, if you're looking at the standings this morning, they are, believe it or not, even in points with the Tampa Bay Lightning at 80, although the Lightning have played 2 fewer games. They pick up Logan Stanley and Braden Shen, as we'd mentioned earlier, from the Winnipeg Jets. They also picked up Sam Carrick from the New York Rangers and Tanner Pearson as well. That was a late deal, a second deal made with the Jets. And they gave up a couple of prospects in this. But when you look at this club now, this is a big team. They've got skill. They've got a good back line. Their goaltending is held up. They've got some scoring up front. This is going to be the proverbial team you don't want to see in the playoffs.
Well, it's going to be their first time in the playoffs since the kid that was born last time they were in the playoffs is getting his driver's license now for the second time. They've got some pretty good players. I mean, all of a sudden their players look good. The ones that we said in October didn't look that good suddenly look good. Krebs, Thompson, Tuck. You got Zucker, McLeod, and Quinn, Norris, Doan, Benson. On the defense, Samuelson and Dahlin, Byram and Power, and Kesselring coming over from Utah. So Suddenly they're a big, strong team that plays really well at home. You know what? It's really a miracle what's happened in Buffalo this year. To go from where they were in October to where they are now is amazing, to say the least.
When we had Mike Harrington on a few weeks back, we talked about how the personnel, when this team started to get on a run, was largely Kevyn Adams' team. But now this is really the first big swings that Jarmo Kekalainen has taken.
Oh, absolutely. And obviously he's got the green light from ownership to go and add salary and make some changes. And he's certainly done that at this deadline. The one trade with Winnipeg brings in two big defensemen, Braden Shen and Logan Stanley. They go in there and replace some guys. And now you've got 7 or 8 good defensemen instead of only, let's say, 5.
And I think Pearson gives them a little fourth line gnarl to their game. So I like the way this team has rounded itself out. And so not only are they going to make the playoffs this year, they have a genuine opportunity to make a statement. And I think the Detroit Red Wings are trying to do the same thing. They're third in the Atlantic. They are 5 clear of wild card 2. Actually, it's wild card 3 because that's the team that is the first one that is out of the playoffs. And the Red Wings added Justin Falk from St. Louis, as we said earlier, and David Perron from the Ottawa Senators. So is this enough to get them in? Did they need to make a lot of moves?
I don't think Stevie needed to make as many as he did. However, I guess he's saying, this is our year. We're going back into the playoffs. First time at Little Caesars Arena that there's ever been a playoff game. It's got to be this year. So they loaded up. And similar to Buffalo, now all of a sudden their lineup looks pretty good. It's not bad. And don't forget that John Gibson has really helped this team in the goaltending area, meaning that they get pretty consistent goaltending on a nightly basis. They can depend on that. And they've developed a lot during this season. So the Red Wings, with, as you said, fortified with a veteran like Justin Falk, David Perron, who they know extremely well. He's been there already. He's an agitating guy that can also put some pucks in the net. So look out. They could cause somebody some problems too.
Speaking of Ottawa, they added, as we also said before, you're going to hear some repeats here because obviously if you're trading somebody and you're getting somebody back, we're going to be mentioning them twice to get Warren Fogle also from the LA Kings. Montreal, nothing. And I think there was some whispers that they would be looking for a goaltender. Obviously, they're going to go with Montembeault and Dobish. Boston, there were a couple of small deals just involving prospects. Are you surprised neither of those clubs made moves today of significance?
Yeah, yes and no. I think they had a read on their team that they're not contenders, but they want to make the playoffs. So they didn't want to give away futures, and the prices were too high for what they had. I mean, the Boston Bruins have got to be very careful because this has been an unexpected playoff run this year. They can't afford to go, paying any future. They need their future. So I'm not surprised by that.
Two teams that we had right at the top in our predictions during our preseason show, and that was the Toronto Maple Leafs and Florida Panthers, and the Leafs moved 3 pieces out. Nick Waugh goes to Colorado, Scott Laughton to the Kings, Bobby McMahon heads out to Seattle, and for the Florida Panthers, they added Vinny Hinostroza, and they send Jeff Petrie to Minnesota. So I think we know this is a lost season in Toronto. I don't know where they're going to go with their future right now and what Brad Treliving is going to do, whether it's more players, whether he moves the coach. And I think for Bill Zito that they didn't move Bobrovsky. I think they're going to go back and start to renegotiate now because he is in the last year of his deal and becomes a UFA. And maybe as we had said earlier, that given the amount of hockey that this club has played, making the finals the last 3 years, winning back-to-back Stanley Cups, all these injuries started to kick in, and they have been from probably game 4 on swimming upstream the entire season. And maybe this is just the kind of year that, you know what, we don't make the playoffs. Let's get everybody healthy, regroup, and take another run at it next year.
Oh, for sure. That's exactly what it is. And there's nothing that they can do about it. They got those injuries. They were just running out of juice as the season went along. Bobrovsky did not have a good regular season this year, so he wasn't standing on his head, and nor can you expect him at his age. But I think for Bill Zito and for Paul Maurice, they just have to resign themselves to the fact that we're just too beat up. We're not going to make it, but we've got a lot of really good players here. And when our guys get back from injury over the summer, we can go back to running for first place again in the division.
So now I want to talk about the two division leaders in the Eastern Conference, because the only move that Tampa Bay made was reacquiring Corey Perry from the Kings. And you see the way that this team has been built, the injuries that they have gotten through the entire season. Great work by John Cooper, but they go into the postseason healthy. This is an extremely formidable lineup. So now you look at the Carolina Hurricanes, who have been bridesmaids year after year after year. And the only player that they picked up at the deadline was tough guy Nick Delorier from the Philadelphia Flyers. And there was some talk, despite the fact Brandon Bussey has had this exceptional season. I think we know the playoff track record of Freddie Anderson. Eric Tulsky didn't do a lot here. And I'm kind of surprised, because I'm not certain that when you look at Tampa Bay, you look at the improvements that Buffalo has made, do they have enough to get out of the Eastern Conference?
Well, they certainly have enough skill, but they had nobody before Delorier that would push back, that could push back. I mean, if you look at their names on their team, Shvetnikov, Aho, Jarvis, Taylor Hall, Stankoven, Blake, Ehlers, Jordan Stahl, Martinook, Carrier, Kokanyemi, Robinson, they don't have a guy to push back. If you want to go in and start laying the body on these guys, there's not a lot they can do besides get you with a power play. So I think they wanted a deterrent. Obviously, they wanted a deterrent. Now they've got one, and that might be what this locker room needed. They might needed to feel that they can get into any kind of game you want to get into. Now, your question is about the goaltending. Everybody's question is about their goaltending. But I really like this kid, Bussey. I think he's played really well for them. I don't think they're making a mistake banking on him. I think he's been great. And we'll see where they can go now that they've got a missile in their lineup to go along with all their sharpshooters. How far can they go?
I just feel that there is still a piece that is missing from this team, but that's why they're going to play the playoffs, just to prove us wrong. So a couple of teams that are contending for playoff berths made some significant moves. We mentioned earlier that Connor Garland is now a Columbus Blue Jacket for the next 6 years, because his contract doesn't kick in until next fall. And I think when you look at Columbus now, and this is a team that has thrived since Rick Bowness has gotten there, you can clearly see that it's a team that's on the rise. I think that we were looking at some players that could potentially be moved. Boone Jenner is a UFA, their captain. Charlie Coyle we were thinking about. But you watch this team play now, and there's a belief that they are really building on what they started last year. And the other team I'm talking about is the New York Islanders. And this was a deal that surprised you, because Braden Chen was acquired from the Blues, but this was a haul that they gave up.
Oh, it was. And this is a rebuilding team. I mean, their new general manager, Matthew Darch, has term on his side. I mean, this is just his first year. He's hit a home run with Matthew Schaefer, even though anybody would have hit that home run if you got the first pick. He made a good deal with Montreal. His team is overachieving this year. When I say overachieving, they're achieving a lot more than they did last year. They're playing really well. So he just needed to sit back and let it happen and then start going again for next year. But he went out and swung the bat and brings in Braden Shen, who's a captain, a leader, a veteran guy, certainly, but he's 34 years old. He's got 2 years left at $6.5 million on his contract. He's slowed down a ton. He's not the same guy that he used to be. But maybe if you're looking at it from Darch's standpoint, you bring in Palat for $6 million, trade Siplikov away. You let Drouin go to St. Louis in this trade with Shen, so you get rid of that body. And now you've got Shen, Horvat, Barzell, Heineman, Ritchie, Pajot, Lee, Holmstrom. You've got some pieces. And maybe they are just saying, look, brand new arena, 5 years old now, but beautiful arena. We need to win around. We need to give our fans hope. Maybe that's what was going on in the owner's suite, because I thought this was a rebuild. You're not rebuilding when you're trading picks and young players.
They have lost their first two on this trip to California. They play in San Jose on Saturday. And I think the interesting thing is that St. Louis is in San Jose on Friday, and the Blues and the Islanders are staying in the same hotel. So this was a pretty easy move for Shen to be right there when he plays his first game, presumably on Saturday night for the Islanders. But what they gave up here was a first-round pick, a third-round pick, a prospect, and Jonathan Drouin. So, we talked earlier about Mackenzie Weegar going to Utah for 5 pieces. This is Braden Shen coming to the Islanders, and they're giving up 4 pieces.
And you talked about their schedule. The Islanders on Tuesday are in St. Louis. So Braden Shen in his second game as an Islander is going to be right back in the place he's played for years. So that's going to be an emotional night for him without any doubt. I doubt that his family would even move from St. Louis until next season. And that's part of these personal stuff that goes into all these trades. So he'll be living out of the Garden City Hotel for the rest of the season with the Islanders. And as I said, probably his family will stay behind. There's no doubt that this makes the Islanders better right now. Did they need to be better in this season, in this part of their development? That's an argument. I know a lot of Islander fans that contacted me thought that they paid way too much. And so you paid for a slowing down 34-year-old and making $6.5 million. You paid a lot, but again, we don't know if the ownership and the management wants to win around. They badly want to win around. And maybe when they looked at the standings, they said, why can't we? We can beat anybody. So that's, as you said, Vic, that's why we're playing the playoffs.
They better start cooking on that welcome home video.
Yeah, that's right. St. Louis better get going on, and they're in San Jose.
Couple of other notes coming out of the Metropolitan Division. We'd mentioned before the Capitals parting with longtime defenseman John Carlson and Nick Dowd. And as you had said, it looks like they could be waving the white flag here because a big part of their personality is now gone. They did pick up David Camp from Vancouver and Timothy Liljegren from the San Jose Sharks. And the New York Rangers generally staying quiet today. As we said earlier, Sam Carrick is off to the Buffalo Sabres. And in a late trade, Brennan Othman, who had underachieved ever since being drafted by New York, is now a Calgary Flame. So, Neil, as we move on here, and we've had, probably about an hour or so to digest everything that has come down with all the trades that came in after 3 o'clock. Anything surprise you regarding teams being quiet or players that didn't move that you thought were going to move?
I think the most surprising move that I didn't see coming was Braden Shen to the Islanders. After all is said and done, Kadri, he wanted out. I mean, he did. Carlson, I predicted they'd trade him because he's UFA at the end of the year. They can re-sign him. They can say, hey, come home at the end of the year. But I got to tell you that I never saw this. Now, one could say, well, the Connor Garland thing, yeah, that is. But that's not the captain of the St. Louis Blues, longtime captain of the St. Louis Blues, going someplace, waiving his no trade to go there. So to me, that's the most surprising one. I didn't see that coming. I didn't see Islanders doing anything big. We were all talking about Thomas being traded from St. Louis. We weren't talking about Schenn.
No, we weren't. And let's transition here a little bit, because another player that was thought to be on the move, and you texted me when I sent you a note regarding Colton Parayko that he was going to be on the move to Buffalo, and you said not so fast. You had been in touch with their trainer, Ray Borelli. He had said, hold on here. And subsequently, he turned down a trade to Buffalo, citing geographical preference. He wants to be able to control his future. And if he's going to go, he wants to go west. Did not want to go to Buffalo.
Well, and that's his right. And that's what you get when you get a contract that you sign that has a no-move clause. This is a premium player, plays on Team Canada in the Olympics, plays on Team Canada in the Four Nations, big, strong guy, really good character. And you know what? It's his right to turn them down and say, no, I don't want to go to Buffalo, New York. I want to stay right here in St. Louis, and tell me the next team, and I'll let you know.
You surprised Vinny Trocheck didn't get moved from the Rangers?
I am surprised he didn't get moved from the Rangers, but then again, what in the Rangers doesn't surprise you? I mean, anything that they do surprises you. God knows what they were asking for Vinny Trocheck. I mean, people said he's got term on his deal, and they might have been asking for way too much. I had heard at one point today Carolina was a destination that he might go, but the Rangers did do several things. They didn't clean house, but it's just a weird situation on 7th Avenue.
Well, that house cleaning had already taken place. And, it's interesting because Trocheck had said, I want to stay east, where Parayko says, no, if I'm going to get moved, I want to go west. Certainly, there's so much intrigue with this. And before we start to wind the show down, from a personal level, Neil, this was always the hardest part for you. And I think we have seen this today play out in several different arenas. We just mentioned these two players. One wants to go in one place, one wants to go in another place. We saw the brothers Foligno united for the first time. We saw both Schenn brothers get traded. And of course, the deal with John Carlson going to the Anaheim Ducks. And there's so much that plays into this. And, we said the fans love this. The media loves this. The players absolutely hate this day.
Especially those that don't have a no-move clause, which is quite a number of them. It's a tough day for everybody. Brian Burke's famous quote about the trading deadline was, it's one of the days when general managers lose their minds, because it's almost like, well, the store is going to close at 3:00. You better get in there and find out what's on the shelves and get something. You got to get something. You got to get something. I got to do something. I don't want to be seen as a GM that doesn't do anything. So, you know what? I think there's just an itch in the trigger finger of most of the GMs to pull the trigger on something, to say you did something.
Some signings here. Now, this is a little bit of good news, because Kiefer Sherwood, it was possible that San Jose may have been looking to flip him. He is staying in San Jose. Obviously likes what he's seeing there. 5-year extension. And that will be at 5.75 AAV. He's making $1.5 million this year. So he sees the waves are pretty good in San Jose. He wants to stick around.
And gets a nice bump to go with it.
Wish we got a bump like that. Also in San Jose, goaltender Alex Nedeljkovic extends for 2 years, $6 million in total. Ryan Poehling extends in Anaheim, 4 years, $15 million in total, 3.75 AAV. And Jordan Eberle, captain of the Seattle Kraken, pending UFA, re-ups for 2 years at $5.5 million AAV. And JG Pageau, the New York Islanders, re-ups for 3 years.
Yeah, at his age. That's a surprising one, that they would re-up Pageau. I know he's really well-liked. I really admire his game. I respect it. He's great in the face-offs and works his butt off night after night. But he's getting long in the tooth, so look out for that.
Final personnel note. Penguins have lost 2 straight. They are obviously trying to keep themselves above water while Sidney Crosby heals. They are 3 points clear of Columbus for a wild card spot, even though they are still second in the Metro. Sidney Crosby back at practice. So I think if they could hold on just a little bit longer, get Crosby back in the lineup, and of course, we're still waiting to hear whether Evgeny Malkin is going to be suspended because of a swing to the head that he took at Rasmus Dahlin of the Buffalo Sabres on Thursday. If they can get themselves settled, get Crosby back, I think they're going to be okay.
If Malkin isn't suspended, there should never be a suspension again. I mean, he basically baseball batted Dahlin in the side of the head. So I'm taking it for granted. The Pittsburgh Penguins have back-to-back home games against the Flyers and the Bruins before going on a 5-game road trip. They're not in yet. I mean, they're at 75 points. They're tied with the New York Islanders. Carolina is easily going to win that division. But it's not over yet for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They got to keep going. And you know, Sidney's such an amazing, amazing athlete and an amazing captain. I'm sure he wants to get back in and contribute as much as he can.
Flyers on the road, 2 games over 500. Bruins 3 games under, so certainly 2 winnable games for the Penguins. So, Neil, before the deadline on NHL Wraparound on Wednesday, you gave me 13 players that you thought that were going to move or potentially move, and you got 7 of them right. You had said Luke Schenn, Logan Stanley, they both went to Buffalo. Scott Lawton went to the Kings. Bobby McMahon to Seattle. Nick Foligno to Minnesota. Jason Dickinson to the Edmonton Oilers, and John Carlson, which surprised many people, went to the Anaheim Ducks, as we've said several times in this show. The players that did not move, Eric Haula, Evander Kane, Ilya Mikheyev, and Sam Lafferty from Chicago, and Trevor Van Riemsdyk from the Washington Capitals. But you did say, as a caveat here, that you thought 2 of the 4 Blackhawk players would move at least, and 2 of them did. So overall, in a trade deadline that was somewhat uneventful in terms of the major deal, I thought you did pretty well here.
Well, and don't forget, I did predict Gustav Nyquist as well from Winnipeg,
yes, thank you.
And he did not get traded. But I didn't think all 4 guys in Chicago would get traded, but there were 4 UFAs, and I thought probably 2 of them would get traded. I still think Trevor Van Riemsdyk, if the Caps don't intend to re-sign him, would be a good depth defenseman for a team. But who knows what that conversation was. And I did think, Vic, that Evander Kane would get traded. He's a UFA at the end of the season. He's got some playoff pedigree. He's also a loose cannon for whoever gets him, sort of like Corey Perry. You never know what they're going to do. But he didn't get moved either. So we'll see how the teams go now. And no more trades to talk about.
Exhale.
Yeah.
Now we can get back to some normalcy when we rejoin you with short shifts on Monday. So that will wrap up NHL Wraparound's Trade Deadline Recap Show. On behalf of Neil, I'm Vic. Have a great weekend. We'll speak to you Monday.